Hello, hey everybody, Joey Sparks. God's mercies are new again this morning.
This morning with my mind stayed on Jesus. I woke up this morning with my mind.
Revelation chapters 18 through 22, final cycle of the book. And this one intensifies several things that he's already introduced and shown us before, and it brings to an end the enemies of God's people. The dragon that's introduced in chapter 12 is seen as destroyed once and for all chapter 20. It's important to connect chapter 12 to chapter 20. You see a lot of people that will emphasize details in chapter 20, but they abuse them when they do. Chapter 12 helps us to unlock some of those details in a more responsible way. Also, chapter 13, you're introduced to a first beast, which is Rome, the Roman Empire, especially its emperors, who now command worship of them as gods. And then you see a second beast, who is the false prophet, the religious people who are enforcing that emperor worship. You see that beast being destroyed in chapter 18. So the people of God have enemies, not because they try to have enemies, but because they obey God and they're honest and they are moral and pure. And now these enemies have come down against them. But chapter 18 fulfills the promise that these enemies will meet their doom. See, they were promised to have some success, to have to turn against the people of God for 42 months. That's half of 7, so 3.5, and that is a symbol for temporary. So God's keeping His promises. Promises made previously in the book of Revelation are now fulfilled in chapter 18. This empire, its emperors will meet their doom. Chapter 18 opens verse 2. A voice of an angel saying, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great." So Babylon is just a placeholder, a symbol for Rome. Babylon was the nation that carried the people of God into exile, that destroyed many of them in Jerusalem and carried them away. Well, Rome is serving in that role now for these Christians. She's become a dwelling place for demons. This is, again, the act of Satan, the work of Satan. They've given the in completely to evil. Rome is not a neutral party. That's something that the Christians needed to hear. You can't support Rome and support Christ, because what Rome demands of you challenges your commitment to Christ. So you see that again in verse 4. There's this command, "Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins." You can live in Rome. You begin to act like Romans, you are losing your faith. Beginning to act like Roman citizens that worship the emperor, who conduct their business because they are playing favorites with the empire. So there's still this warning in the midst of this judgment that's a fulfilling of a promise. There's a warning to Christians: get away, lest you suffer the same fate she is now suffering. Then you see a long list of those who are upset around the world because of the judgment against Rome, that this empire is certain to fall. And then you see the scene itself. It begins in verse 21. A mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, and then said, "So will Babylon, the great city, be thrown down with violence." You see this visual image of a great millstone, and it's splashing into the sea and falling and sinking immediately to the depths. Well, that's the violence with which Rome is going to suffer judgment. Some of that, of course, comes when the Roman Empire falls as a nation and suffers violence, and its people suffer. But it's also going to suffer mighty, incredible pain and judgment for eternity when they answer to God. It's dramatic, it's intense. And what that should call us to do is to number one, thank God for His justice, that those who are intent upon causing harm to Christians, to God's people, God will see, God will know, and God will act in His justice. And for those who are hard-hearted, impenitent, they will have certain judgment. But number two, this reminder also is don't side with them. Don't try to win them over with compromise, because you too will suffer their same fate. Thank you for watching so much this morning. It is our prayer that God's timeless word will be on your mind all day today.
I woke up this morning.